If you find something that you really, really enjoy, just double down and keep doing it and find a way of monetizing it to give you the lifestyle that you want. When you're giving advice to people, repetition is the only way you're going to learn. Unfortunately, what happens whilst doing that repetition is you will make mistakes. And I've often said the first few years of my career as a broker, I was awful. You have to learn as you go. And the advice I give to brokers or anyone that's in some kind of service industry is work with as many clients as you possibly can. I fell into what I do now completely by accident. If you can spend most of your life feeling content with what you've done and feeling like you've achieved something, then that is genuine success for me. It's not monetary, it's a feeling that you have inside. I'm constantly trying to fight to get to the next level, to do the next thing, but I think being able to feel content with what you've done is a big way towards feeling like you have success in your life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Need to Succeed podcast. And like I always say, this podcast is really designed for us to speak to incredible entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things in their field and just to really understand like what their journey is. Because oftentimes what happens, you can get two people who have been through the exact same situation. One person decides because of that situation, they're going to go on to become wildly successful. And the other person, because of the exact same situation, decides, well, I can no longer achieve the things that I want to achieve. Same situation, different result. What is the difference between these two mindsets? That is exactly what we look to uncover on this podcast. And today we have got an absolutely phenomenal guest. He's someone who's doing a huge amount of things, within the broking and the property space, giving out a lot of content. Every time I hear this gentleman speak, I feel like I'm learning something every single time, which is absolutely incredible. He is the property investors broker himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Sam Norris.
Is that good? It's awesome to be here. I'm just happy to be in this studio. Like, it's just really cool in here.
Honestly, it's so good to have you on. So good to have you. And do you remember it was interesting how we got connected, right? Yeah. Because you saw some of my stuff and you dropped me a message. You were like, mate, it would be really cool to get. And I was like, mate, I've been thinking about how to approach you to get you on.
Yeah, I'm forward. I'm that guy in the bar that will come up and be like, hey, do you want a drink?
No, honestly, I love it. So now, really, really good to finally get you in the studio, man. I'm super excited about this one.
Me too.
Now, we've got a tradition on the podcast, and the very, very first question is, what does success actually mean to you?
I think it means being content with your life. I went and did when I was doing my master's degree. I did a master's degree. I'm a very intelligent person, obviously. No, I really struggled with it actually. But I remember going to a which was it wasn't part of the course. It was actually I think it was somebody that worked in radio, as a DJ, that kind of stuff. Just doing a kind of a free to go to lecture about success and stuff like that. And he actually said a lot of people tie in success with happiness. And it's not, because happiness is fleeting. There's a phrase that literally says happiness is fleeting. He said it's about being content. And if you can spend most of your life feeling content with what you've done and feeling like you've achieved something, then that is genuine success for me. It's not monetary, it's a feeling that you have inside. And I have moments where I feel pretty content with what I've done, but as we were talking about off air as well, I'm constantly trying to fight to get to the next level, to do the next thing. But I think being able to feel content with what you've done is a big way towards feeling like you have success in your life.
That's beautiful, man. And I love that answer because first of all, it's very raw, very honest, right? Because how do you define success really? Is it something that it's finite? It's like when I get to this level, then I'm actually successful. Because, I don't really feel that that's the right way. So what you're kind of saying there is, there's this level of contentment. And sometimes you're going to be content. Sometimes you might not feel as content because if you're driven, if you're an entrepreneur and there's things that you want to achieve, it's like, cool, I've done this, what's next? Cool, I've done that, what's next? And in those moments, in that process, you could be content with what you've achieved, but it's like, okay, cool, now there's another level. Otherwise, what am I going to do? Just retire and rot away?
Exactly. Do you know, it's funny. It's a double-edged sword because, yes, contentment is sort of almost the goal, but I love goals, I love targets. But the reality is that you've actually got to love the process and the game that you're playing, because entrepreneurship, running a business like I do, I say to people all the time, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world because I don't work. I would work on my business every hour of every day because I love it. I love talking to my clients. I love thinking about how we can improve the processes. You know, we're working on some things in our operations department at the moment, which I'm just really excited about. And then when I tell other people about it, they're like looking at me like, you're a bit crazy, actually.
Yeah, operations is not, it's not the sexiest.
But I get really excited about these things. So I think you've got to love the game. And I like to use my sporting analogies. I'm a massive rugby fan. And I often say the best players in the world and the best teams in the world, yes, they have an ultimate goal of winning a trophy. And they've got a whole season, they've got cups, they've got league competitions, or whatever. They want to win those trophies. But the memories that they have of the greatness and the success are generally probably not lifting those trophies. They're in other matches. They're points during a game. And that, for me, is what people need to aspire to do. Love the game that you're playing, because the success will come. Because actually, when you hit a target, so what happens then? You just stop? No, of course you don't. You've got to be in something that you would be happy doing for the rest of your life. I think there are two different thought processes with this. Is you either are doing something because you have a goal in sight where you may actually want to kind of retire, have that kind of laptop lifestyle, or whatever it is you want to do, where actually work doesn't take precedent anymore. But if you actually love it, then it doesn't. I'd do what I do till I'm 98. I would run this company and hopefully many others until the day I die. I've got the idea of retirement scares the crap out of me. I don't want to be doing that. I'm at my worst when I have nothing to do. So I know that that's a really bad version of myself, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah, for me, you've got to, if you find something that you really enjoy, just double down and keep doing it, and find a way of monetizing it to give you the lifestyle that you want. That's the way. It's not driving towards a specific goal. Yes, you're going to have targets and all that kind of stuff, and things you want to achieve, but don't make them the be all and end all, and do something that you hate doing to try and achieve them, because otherwise you'll never actually end up achieving them. In my book, I don't think you will.
Wow, that's so true. You know, like you said, that the devil does make work for idle hands. So yeah, if you've got nothing to do, then you will be doing something. It might not benefit you that much, but you will be doing something, right? Yeah. But I love it because I get to sit here and speak to people who I respect, right? And you all pretty much, they say success leaves clues. I love that saying, success leaves clues. And once again, like every time, you guys are saying something similar, but in a different way. A lot of people out there today, especially, I always kind of keep going back to Instagram and TikTok. You're looking at this success. This is what success means. That's what it looks like. And people are looking at the output, looking at, I want to become a millionaire, I want to make 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, whatever it might be. Whereas actually, if you focus on the inputs, right? You focus on what you're doing on a day-to-day, the work, the quality, the service, the value that you're creating. If you actually just focused on that, the output is going to come. The millionaire status is going to happen. The 10 million, that's going to happen. But it's the inputs that you're putting in right now. That's the most important thing. But oftentimes, that's also the difficult thing. And that's what people don't want to do.
It's the nitty gritty stuff. That's the thing that defines good versus average. Because for me, I know this. I know that I have to be disciplined and I have to work on the things on a day-to-day basis that I genuinely really don't want to do, because I know that they're the things that are going to define my success. I love making videos for Instagram and YouTube. I love talking to my clients on the phone. These are the things on a day-to-day basis. I would love to get to a point where they're the only things I do, but I know that's never going to happen. I know there are always going to be some little admin tasks that I have to do. Yes, I've got a team. So, I mean, this morning a little problem occurred. And I knew that I could deal with it myself, but I also knew that all I needed to do was pick up the phone to my operations manager and she would sort it, because she could do it just as well as I could. So you can outsource certain things, but the reality is there's always going to be little nitty gritty things that you don't necessarily want to do.
But even to get there, you have to do the work, right? The
Absolutely.
team just didn't appear, did it?
Absolutely. So you've got to have that discipline. You've got to do the small annoying tasks that you don't necessarily want to do, and a lot of people unfortunately push those further and further back, and they never get done. And what you need to do is just be consistent over a long enough period of time, doing the right things. I talk to my team and I say, we've got loads of stages in our CRM system. I said, our job every single day, let's just focus on, we just need to move as many of our clients that are in different stages of the process to the next stage.
Wow.
That's all we need to do. And if we do that every day forever, then we are going to be giving a great service to our clients. So keep it simple and just do those little things, just every day, consistency, and it will come.
Wow, I love that there. Just move on to the next step of the CRM. Just move on to the next step.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Okay, cool. So Sam, you're killing it now. You've got this team. They're cracking on, they're doing the work. You're banging out the socials. I'm watching them like, oh, this guy is amazing. This is incredible. But this didn't just happen, right? And what I really want to sort of, what I really like to unpack on this podcast is I'm speaking to myself 12, 13, 15 years ago when I'm homeless, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm wanting to, is life over for me? Like, what's actually possible? What can I still do? Like, all these people that are out there right now, like, can I even get to that level? Mm-hmm. So what I want to really do is just peel back and go back to who you were before. Some of this stuff, how did you come to become who you are today? What that journey is, because it's in that journey that the lessons are really learned, right? Yeah. So, what would you say is for you, the earliest point that you can say, how can I frame this? What's been the most significant earliest point that you can remember in your life?
I think there's a few. I mean, number one, I fell into what I do now completely by accident, as much of an accident as it can possibly be, because I actually got called by a recruitment consultant. I was in my first job coming out of university back in sort of 2007. And they said they told me that they had this trainee broker role that they think I'd be good for. It was working down in Chiswick, and I said, oh, okay, cool, sign me up, get me to this interview. I went down there, and I thought broker, stocks, right? Stocks and shares, stockbroker. So I did loads of research on what a stockbroker does, how to buy stocks and shares, all this kind of stuff. Got down there, first of all, realised it was a group interview. Not just me. There was 11 people, including myself. I was like, oh God. I was the youngest person there by probably about 5 years. There were people in the room that had been managers of, Sainsbury's branches, Next branches. All, these people that had experience and all that kind of stuff. So first and foremost, there was that. I was like, great. And they weren't, hadn't defined how many people from that group they were going to take, and they would potentially take none. So I thought, okay, I'm already on the back foot here a little bit. Then when the guy gets up and starts talking, he starts talking about mortgages. I'm like, hang on a second here, what? What is this? And I did a decent degree at uni. I can think for myself. I'm think on my feet. And he was doing this presentation. I was like, okay, cool. I'm getting this. I think I understand the process. Sounds pretty interesting. We got to the point where I was doing my one-to-one part of the interview. You get half an hour, and I said, look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I haven't come here thinking that this is what this is. Luckily, he was more annoyed with the recruitment consultant for not giving me the heads up. But I said to him, look, how about we do it this way? Let's take 15 minutes each. Let me ask you a load of questions about what mortgages are and what mortgage brokers do, and what the job entails. And you then can interview me for 15 minutes. How do you feel about that? And he said, I think that's a great idea. So we did that. I came out thinking, I think this is actually quite interesting. I've always kind of been interested in property. I was that student that watched Homes Under the Hammer more than they actually went to lectures, and always kind of thought, my dad's a builder as well, so I've always had property in my life. I thought this is a really cool way of maybe getting into that. So I kind of like the idea, but clearly the fact that I was able to think on my feet and sort of put that idea, and I wasn't scared to sort of say that in front of a very tall, very large South African gentleman, seemed to sort of strike a chord, and I was the only person in those 11 that actually got offered the job, and became a trainee. So that was kind of my first foray into it, which was completely by accident. And I went into a world being a trainee advisor at Foxton's estate agents, going into the mortgage side of things, and Jesus, it was rough. They work you hard there.
Corporate.
It's very corporate. It's very Americanized in terms of you're on the phone. I was tasked with making 250 calls a day. I learned how to work hard basically during that time, but I also learned, I've got to give Foxtons a lot of kudos for this. There's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily like the brand, but in terms of how they train their staff, second to none. We knew everything about the property market, and they trained you every day on it. They kept you up to date in the morning. They had bulletins, went round. Everyone got up. There was 200 people or so in that office. Everyone was standing around, right, this is what's going on in the market today. This is what's happening. This is what's in the news. This is what we need to be talking about to our clients. It was great from that point of view. I can't fault them at all. But that's how I kind of got into it. I fell out of it. But I've often said, I've been doing this 16 years now, and in reality, I think I've only been good at it for the last 5 or 6. It takes a long time, you know, when you're offering a service, when you're giving advice to people, repetition is the only way you're going to learn. Unfortunately, what happens whilst doing that repetition is you will make mistakes. And I've often said, you know, the first few years of my career as a broker, nobody listening to this would have wanted me to be their broker. I was awful. So you know, you have to learn as you go. And the advice I give to anyone, advice I give to brokers or anyone that's in some kind of service industry is work with as many clients as you possibly can. And my sort of number is 100. I think for me in our industry, once you've worked with 100 clients to do 100 mortgage applications, or in my case like bridging or development finance, whatever it might be, that's when I think you get to the point where you go, actually, do you know what? I know this process. I understand it. And I think when I switched that on in my head, that was one of my key moments where I thought, this is what I actually need to be successful. I need to go and work for a company that can allow me to get to that, because my first actual job, I left Foxtons because the credit crunch happened. I could see that no one was getting promoted and I was just going to be stuck in a job I didn't actually want to be doing long term. I went out, confident as you like, strolled into a wealth management company in North London where I grew up, and just said, hey, do you want a mortgage broker? Because I'm one. Give me that desk there. I'll work under your brand. Pay me 50% of all the stuff I bring in. And there we go. And it was really tough. I worked there for 3 years, 2.5 years, and it was ridiculously tough. And that's when I kind of had the realization, I need repetition. I need to learn my trade. And, you know, I went off and worked for a company that could give me those leads, you know, book those appointments for me so that I could learn my trade. And once I learned my trade, I was confident in what I did. And that meant that I felt more able to go out to the wider public and then get my own leads, because I felt confident talking to people about this industry and the service and, you know, the market and all that kind of stuff, which is why, you know, as you alluded to, I find it relatively straightforward to jump on my phone or on a camera and talk about what's going on in the market, talk about what a mortgage is, what a bridging loan is, how you can use these, all that kind of stuff, because I have the experience of doing it. I've done it so many times for so many people. I'm so privileged to have worked with some amazing investors who have gone on to be incredibly successful. And I am genuinely humbled by the fact that I've been able to play some part in that. But it does mean that I can see how they do things, how I've helped them to do those things. And then I can I think, relatively easily convey that to other people in either a one-to-one session or, you know, on a one-to-many, if you're talking about Instagram or YouTube or something like that. So you've got to learn your trade before you can start preaching about it, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what I would say just from listening to that is, actually, it seems to me like this confidence is something that was innate, because your very, very first interview, you know, what you did in that room, not many people would actually be able to do it. You know, first of all, you know, admitting like, you know what, this is not the interview I came for. That's kind of fine. Maybe some people can do that and say, hey, look, like, I got the wrong information. That's fine. You know, but for you to say, to be intellectual enough, because that was a smart, you know, comment you made. It was a smart observation. Like, well, hey, look, why don't I ask you some questions first, see if this is actually something that's of interest to me, and then after that, you can then ask me some questions. Not a lot of people have the confidence to do that. So the confidence seems to me like it's something that's innate. So like, where would you say that comes from?
I wouldn't necessarily actually put it down to confidence. I think it's down to maybe having confidence in your ability to solve problems. I've always thought of myself as a problem solver. I've played rugby a lot throughout my life, and the position that I've played in has been the problem solver of the team, the guy that looks and goes, right, we need to get from where we are here to over there. What moves, tactics do we have in the bank to be able to get us there? And I would then convey that to the rest of the team and choose what we're going to do. You know, the football equivalent of a sort of centre midfielder type role. So I've always think I've been good at problem solving. That's led me, I think I've pretty much every single rugby team I've ever played for, I've always captained as well. So being able to solve those problems, and that gives you an element of confidence as well. But I've always said I'm a problem solver. Give me an issue, and I'll find a solution. It's why I struggle dealing with illogical people quite a lot. That's my biggest downfall, is dealing with illogical people. But there's a lot of great illogical people out there, by the way. But if someone comes to me and says, this is the issue, I'll go, right, logically, this is how we should solve it. And then you get some illogical people that don't understand that. But I think that's where the confidence comes from. I'm not necessarily sure if it's something that was innate inside of me, that I've had all my life. I think it was more a case of I started to realize that I had a gift for solving issues, and you kind of then get a confidence in your ability that no matter what happens, you reckon you can find a solution to it. And I think that's I remember, like, again, you talked about sort of times in my life when things changed. I remember working for a company many years ago, and I had a sales manager at the time called Sharon. She was absolutely amazing. I think I have told her that she was a real influence on my life, actually. And this is incredible. She was such a strong woman. She actually survived terminal cancer, this woman. Wow. Terminal cancer, she survived it. And I told her this when she announced on Facebook that she was going through the treatment. I actually sent her a message and I said, I know this is probably not what you want to hear, but I think you're going to survive this. Like this, that you're
machine.
You're a machine. This ain't going to kill you, and it didn't. But she gave me some advice once. She said, when something happens, there is the only difference you can make to the outcome is your reaction to it. So if you crash your car, if you then get really annoyed and go and shout at the person that crashed into your car or do all these kind of things, then the police might turn up, you might get arrested, all of this bad stuff happens. That is not, all that didn't happen because of the car crash. It happened because of your reaction to the car crash. So if you get out of the car and you go to the other person, this has happened, not sure who's to blame, let's exchange details, let's get in touch with the relevant people, let's shake hands, let's see it as the accident that it is, chances are there's going to be a much more amicable outcome, and the best outcome will occur as a result of your reaction to it. So she always said, event plus reaction equals outcome, and that stayed with me my entire life. And I think that comes back to the problem solving side of things, that my ops manager, Ruby, she always says, like, you don't seem to get stressed when I come to you where there's been an issue with something. And I said, because getting stressed about it doesn't help. In my brain, I might be thinking, crap, oh my God, this is bad. But me saying that out loud, me allowing that feeling to come out into the atmosphere is not going to help the situation. The best way of dealing with it is to be calm and go, right, this has happened. I can't get in my DeLorean and go back in time and change that. It's already happened. So what's the best way of finding a solution to this? It might not be the situation might still be pretty rubbish, but at least we've dealt with it in the absolute best way that we possibly can. A lot of that, and in our industry, comes down to looking at let's say there's an issue with a lender's pulled an offer or something like that. It does happen from time to time. Obviously, I know that when the client finds out about that, they're going to be really upset. So my first port of call is, right, how can we limit how upset that client's going to be? Because my duty of care is always to the client. You've always got to look after the client. They are front and center of absolutely everything that we do. And that's like a big mantra of ours. So I first of all say to the team, right, what can we do to make this news as easy to take as possible? Generally speaking, that is find an alternative solution, get another lender lined up, make it as easy as possible for that client to go, okay, I understand this has happened, I'm a bit annoyed, but you found a solution for me already. And then it's to communicate that in a really, really simple way to that person. So I think it's, when problems do occur, the ability to be able to keep calm and find a solution, again, I think it's a defining trait in anyone that actually ends up becoming successful, because you'll know it better than most, because you get some awesome people on this couch that have been incredibly successful. The problems never stop. The issues never stop. In fact, as you become more successful, you could argue the problems get more difficult to deal with and larger
more problems.
So start learning when the problems are small how to deal with them, because there are probably some bigger things down the line. And I'm certain, give me a few years, and I'm certain there'll be many, many other bigger problems that I'm going to have to deal with in my life and in my business. So learning how to deal with those in a controlled manner, I think is a massive quality that leaders and successful business people should have.
Wow. To be honest, listening to you, you sound like a natural leader, because you've had your business for 2 years, right? You sound like someone who's just been doing this for decades. Right? You really do. So that kind of leads me to that question, because probably one of the toughest parts for entrepreneurs is that transition, especially if you've been in the corporate world, right? Is that transition from that corporate to running your own business. Like, how did you find that? How was that process for you? How did you come about that?
It was an odd one, actually. I was kind of forced into it a little bit because we started. Our first the company officially on Company's House, it says something like the 11th of June 2020. But we obviously, myself and I used to have a business partner who I've since bought out. But we had we were starting the process probably a year before that, and we were both working for the same company. And actually, when COVID came around, sort of March, April, they were scaling down and they actually let me go. So it was really good that I had this in the background to like jump on straight away. So yeah, April, May sort of time, I got let go and we were able to start the business. Mid June, and we actually signed up our first client on the first day of trading because we had a running start. We had people that we were already talking to and all that sort of stuff. I think the biggest thing for me was actually both he and I did the same job. We're both qualified mortgage brokers. He had something like 10 years experience at the time. At that time, I had sort of 13, 14 years of experience. And we were both mortgage brokers. I think what we didn't realize, and ultimately this is probably why we actually end up going our separate ways, was I think I learned quicker than him. He's a great broker and he's still a great friend, but he wanted to continue doing the job, but he wanted to own the job. He didn't want somebody above him telling him what to do. And that's actually completely cool. And anyone listening to this that thinks to be self-employed means that you have to run a big business, it doesn't. If you just want to run your own job, that's actually completely okay. And that's what he wanted to do. I figured out early doors that I think that just doing the job was never going to take me out of that job. And what I think I realized was that I actually wanted to build a company. I had ambitions to change our industry. I wanted to give property investors and developers an alternative to the normal brokerage to work with. And those ambitions required me to step out of just being a broker day to day. I reckon I spend a third of my week doing that job. We've since grown the team. We have another broker, Chanel, that works with us now, and she probably takes on, as I said, probably 2/3 of the new business inquiries that we have that come in, because she's more than capable of doing it, and I'm just there guiding and working with our operations manager to improve our processes, and just keeping an eye on the company. So I think I read it a bit too late actually, but I read a really great book. I can't remember the author, but it's called The E-Myth Revisited.
Michael E. Gerber.
That's the one. And for anyone that has aspirations of setting up a business, I recommend reading that before you do it, because it talks about the various different roles within the company. Well, the 3 basic rules within a company, which is your sort of your worker, and that's for me. That's what I was. I was a broker. I was doing the day-to-day work. You've got somebody that manages those people, and then you've got the person at the top. And I say top, and I don't necessarily mean it in terms of they're better, because I say to my team as well, I say, I work for Grand Union Finance, same as you. I'm not the boss in the traditional sense. Yeah, I pay you, but we all work for the same company. We're all together. We're all in this together. And that's my philosophy on how a good company should be working, particularly a boutique style company that we are. Between 3 and 12, you're a boutique company, and I think that's the philosophy that they should have. But the person at the top, there's no better way of me describing that, is the creative, is the thought person, and they need the managers and the workers to implement the ideas that they have. And I think that's what I like I said, I read this book a year into the business. Ironically, that was probably about the time that me and my business partner kind of decided to go our separate ways.
I was just about to say, that is such a problem, because I've read that book.
Yeah.
So I understand if there's someone who's read that book and someone who hasn't, and your business partners, it's a problem.
I used to buy him so many books, and I don't think he's ever read them. But I do this now with my team.
Yes.
If I reckon I read a book a week. I do audio books, because what I do is I call it like my audiobook auditions. So not all audiobooks are good. So I'll get through as many as I can, and then I'll buy the ones that are great, and I'll then read them again, listening to the audio whilst reading them and making notes as I go, because I know that there are things in those books that I can implement. And I think that the way I do things is an amalgamation of probably 5 or 6 books that I absolutely love. And I've implemented those ideas into my business. But I do it with my team. I read a really great book by a guy called James Sinclair recently called The Experience Business, and it talks a lot about having the philosophy of putting your customers first and that kind of stuff. So I bought a copy and I've sent it to Ruby, my operations manager, because she needs to know that that's the way I want this business to be run. We want it to be a business where people get a fantastic experience from it, because ultimately there are so many other benefits for that happening, not just the client being happy and us being able to work with them again, but they will obviously tell people, and I think it just creates a better work sort of experience for the people actually working within the business as well. So I've sent her that book to read to do that, and I do it with my clients as well. I've sent probably hundreds of books to my clients. If I'm speaking to them and they say I've got this problem, I say, do you know what? I've read this book and I think it'd be really helpful for you. I've already got their address, funny enough, because it's been written into their application form for their mortgage. And I just send them a copy, and I'll put, I'll do it on Amazon, and I'll just write a note on there based on our conversation the other day where you said X, Y, Z. Read this book because I think it will help you solve that problem. And the gift of knowledge there's no greater gift, is there? So, and I like doing that, because the thing is as well, some people might say, oh, you're just doing that, Sam, because you're trying to get in with your clients and make them, oh, he bought me a book. No, I'm trying. My job is to make my clients more successful. I actually say, I sort of stumbled across this the other day. We were having a conversation every single week. At the end of the week, we have a whole company Zoom call where we all jump on and we discuss ideas and problems and how to solve them and stuff like that. And last week I said, guys, we have to remember we are not a mortgage brokerage. We're a property success partner. We're actually here to help our clients be successful. That's the mantra that we need to have every single time we're talking or dealing with a client. We are trying to make them more successful. They are not a transaction. This is long term. This is the philosophy that we have. And that's why if I'm talking to a client and I see a way of helping them outside of the normal way of helping them, I'll do it. It's why we partner with other companies that have a similar philosophy to us. So we can actually say to them, for you to be able to be successful, you found the best brokerage in the world. So let's introduce you to the best solicitor. Because we've got 20 solicitors that we know that we think are brilliant, but I'll be able to go, that's the one for you. Or you need to talk to somebody about your tax situation and sorting your company structures. This is the tax advisor that you should be speaking to, because I know that they will be able to help them be more successful. On a completely selfish note, the more clients we've got that are successful, the better for us, of course. But it's just not all about that. It is actually just about trying to help those people be as successful as possible, which is why when I first speak to my clients, I very rarely talk to them about finance at all. It's actually about what you're trying to achieve. The first question I ask most clients when I first speak to them on the phone is, what does your property business look like when it's finished? Because then I understand what their goal is, whether they've got smaller, medium, or large ambitions. If they turn around to me and say, "Yeah, I want a £10 million portfolio, Sam," I'm like, "Great, okay, we've got some work to do. So let's get on with it." And I understand their vision, and I can then work into. I've got clients with £10 million portfolios. I know what they've done, so I can then work backwards and go, right, okay, Dave, this other client. Well, John, this is what Dave has done. I don't necessarily tell them their names or anything like that, but I can then say, right, this is. If you want to achieve this is genuinely what we need to do. These are the finance products you have to understand how to use. You might not want to use a bridging loan, Dave or John, but you're going to have to, unfortunately. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve that scenario in the time frame that you want to achieve it. That's another question I always ask them. Right, you want to achieve that? That's what it looks like. How long are you giving yourself to get there? These are the questions I ask my clients, not because it helps me as to do a transaction as a mortgage broker. It helps me understand what my client wants to achieve. So then I'm better placed to help them achieve it, if that makes sense.
That's incredible. I've got so many questions to ask off the back of that, literally. But there's two that's pressing. The first one is, how do you have that difficult conversation with your partner? Once you kind of probably come to a realization, 1-2 separate pages. Obviously, you both bought into the vision. You've both put the graft in, all of that. How do you have that conversation? That's the first one. And then the second one is, how do you enforce, without being a dictator, to your team to read that bloody book?
That second question is a really good one, but I'll come on to that in a sec. First one, I was the dumped. I got dumped.
Okay.
He actually called me and he said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. We actually had, bearing in mind, we're really great friends. We've known each other for 6-7 years now. And he's brilliant at what he does, by the way. Never would ever say that he's not a fantastic broker. We'd started to have quite a few arguments. And I think what it was I had a certain philosophy. He had a certain different philosophy. And what happened was we just decided that we'd have to compromise on everything. So we did the middle way, which was not the way to do it. So we were struggling because we were doing things that neither of us really wanted to do. And, you know, we only had one employee at the time, and she could see that it wasn't the way to do it. So she wasn't very happy either. And I think, yeah, it just came to a fore where he just suddenly said, you know, look, this is how to do it. And you know what, this is good advice for anyone that's going into a partnership with somebody. What happened with us is we wanted to start our own business because we didn't want to work for the people that we worked for. We didn't like the way they did things. We thought we could do it better. And it was kind of, I don't want to say we started the business with a negative starting position, because it was a anti them rather than a pro us. But we put so much time and effort into, we don't want to work for them anymore, we want to work for us. We didn't really talk about what working for us meant, what our own goals were, what we wanted to achieve, and how quickly we wanted to achieve it. I realized relatively early on in the process with him is I said early doors, right, we need to take as little money out of this company as we possibly can, because we need that money to be able to grow. Well, he's like, no, I'm quite happy just to live month to month and take my part of what we earn out of the business. I'm okay with that. That's how I want to do things, and that's actually okay. So yeah, he just came to me and said, look, you know, I just don't think I don't think we should work together anymore. And my first feeling was literally like, if you've ever been dumped before, that was actually how I felt. You know, you get that sense of like anxiety. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? And I'm very lucky. I've got a lot of amazing people around me, and I spoke to 3 or 4 people, including my mum. She's my PA, but she's a very wise woman. You know, she's getting on a bit now, so she's had a bit of life experience, and she actually said, she was the first person to turn around to me and said, Sam, you can actually do this on your own. It might actually be a good thing, because you can then decide what to do. So okay, it's cool. I spoke to Ruby, who's now my operations manager, was then kind of administrator for the company and stuff. And I told her what was going to happen. And I said, look, you can either leave if you want, you can come with me, you can go with him. She was actually a friend of his. That's how she got the job in the first place. She said, no, Sam, like I think your philosophy of what we're doing is the right way to do it. That's what I want to be part of. So I'm with you. So I said to her very early doors, I said, well, look, it's me and you now, mate. So I'm gonna, you know, rely on you a little bit more than we do at the moment. I think you need to be a bit more senior in terms of the decision making that you do. I trust you. I think you're awesome. And now she and I have a really nice relationship whereby I do ask her opinion on so many things. She knows as much about what goes on in the company as I do, but we also have this nice unwritten rule that we both have an input, but I have the final say. And I think it's really important within a company to have somebody that can have the final say, because ultimately if you are 50-50, then you are always probably going to find that you go down that compromise route more than you don't. So yeah, that's how that happened. But yeah, I got dumped basically. But your question in terms of the books, I don't necessarily think I do really. I buy them for them and say, please read them. And then I don't really follow up. So maybe I should, maybe that's a good tip. But I guess with something like that, I would, what I have found
I asked because I want to know for myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer in reading, but I know not everyone actually has that same philosophy. So it's like, if I could enforce it,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying, then it benefits.
Do you know what I find it is that if we take away, let's say it's not a book that you've told somebody to do, but it's a task that you've asked them to do. I think what I've learned, and this is a fairly recent lesson, I said to you when we were off air, that I'm a relatively new business owner, so I'm learning every day. I think you've got to be open to learning every day, no matter what you do. And I'm certainly a massive sponge, and a lot of what I'm teaching myself at the moment is actually how to run the business, because I know how to be a broker. I know how to acquire clients. I know how to work with clients. I know how the process of being a broker works, how mortgages, bridging loans, all this kind of stuff, working with lenders. I know all that stuff. The stuff that I don't know is the nitty gritty, how to do management accounts and how to do cash flow projections and all that kind of stuff. I'm learning how to do that. But what I think I've learned fairly recently is, as the team's growing, I have to give tasks to people, but then I need to make them accountable to actually doing them. And I think setting a time frame for it and then having a follow up for it is important. So myself and Ruby, we generally have about sort of a 2-3 hours worth of Zoom calls probably a week, where we talk about our systems and processes that we use, how we can improve them. I'm a great slight edge theory sort of advocate. Just keep making things better, a little bit better every single day. So we work on that. I should probably send her that book, actually, come to think of it. And so when we do have those calls, what we do off the back of them is we go, okay, well, we've had 5 ideas. We can't do all 5, so let's take the top 2. We're going to try and implement them. Right? How quickly do you think we can implement? I ask her. Oh, I think we could do the first one in the next 2 weeks, that one in the next month. Wicked. Okay. What do you need to do? What do I need to do? Let's actually list out our responsibilities. Great. Okay. Fine. Now let's put a date in the diary for next week. We're going to catch up, and both of us have to have done these things. And it means that you're accountable. Having said that, I also got a really great bit of advice recently from somebody who's been running a really profitable business for about 11 years. And he said, the best business owners in the world will go into a meeting with a pad, come out, and they've written nothing down, because they don't have to. Because they are coming out of that, and everyone else in the room has got to go off and implement what's been discussed. And you're the ideas person, you're doing that. I haven't mastered that yet, but I'm working on it. I'm currently not doing my bit for the environment in terms of pads that I get through.
Yes.
But I'm hoping to improve on that in the future.
What might be really interesting is for you to look into Amazon's philosophy on meetings. That would be really cool for you to listen to. I love it. It's pretty much no nonsense, no fluff. The goal of the meeting is to keep it as short as possible. If it can be 5 minutes, let's do 5 minutes and get out of it.
Well, you say on that, what I've also started doing recently, which I've seen a massive change, is I actually like having meetings. I like talking to people and doing this stuff. But I think telling people in advance, pre-framing what the meeting is there to for, and what specifically what you're going to discuss, and what the output of that meeting needs to be, is massively helpful, because everyone's then just focused on getting those tasks done.
Yes.
And I did that today. Later on, our Friday meetings, they alternate between talking about operations and talking about marketing, and looking after customers and clients. And today we've got an operations meeting, and I've literally put, right, guys, operations meeting tomorrow. This was yesterday. The focus of it is going to be this particular part of our process. I want us to think about problems that we have that are slowing that part of the process down, and I want you to come armed with some ideas on how we can improve them, and we're going to discuss them, we're going to delegate, we're going to get out, and that's how we kind of pre-frame those types of meetings. So I have found that doing that is massively helpful.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. That's actually a huge part of the Amazon's process. So yeah, there you go, mate. You're a natural, mate.
I don't know. Like I said to you before, it's tricky, isn't it? Because when you're in it, it's hard. I was actually having a chat. I popped in for a very, very quick pint in my old local in North London last night, and I was chatting to a guy called Gary, who is in his late 70s, I think. He's a right boy, actually, and he always says to me, seen you pop up on Facebook, and he asks me about this kind of stuff, and he said as well, he goes, you're a bit of a natural at this, Sam, aren't you? And I just said, I'm learning as I go, Gary. You've got to be honest about these things. And yeah, do you know what? Day by day, week by week, if you keep doing the right things, you keep learning, you keep getting the right advice, reading the right books, researching the right things. You talked about Amazon there. I'm a massive advocate of studying successful people. I read a lot of biographies and autobiographies. In fact, I actually find biographies about successful people are better than autobiographies. But it's somebody else talking about that person. It's very easy for, you know, somebody successful to talk about themselves and say, I did this, I did this, I did this. But actually having someone else do it, which is why there's a biography on Elon Musk, which is really good, because somebody else is talking about Elon Musk and it's not him. So it's good to study these people, what makes them tick, what's made them successful, and you can draw comparisons between different traits that they have, and you keep doing that, and over a long enough time vector, you should be successful. You know,
Amazing.
You've just got to keep focused. And funnily enough, I don't think we've discussed once in this nearly 44 minutes, we haven't actually discussed money once, because I'm a great believer that money just follows. Do the right things, look after people, put good processes in place, create a good business, and the money comes after that. Yes, of course, look, we've already discussed that you've got to do management accounts, all these kind of things. You've got to understand what's happening from a financial perspective within a company. But in terms of philosophy, it shouldn't touch money at all. If you're primarily money driven, I genuinely think you're setting yourself up to fail, because that means that the one time you don't make the money that you wanted to make, your whole world is just going to collapse.
Yeah, but there are also a lot of opportunities to make money that you do not want to be doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if that's what your focus is, you know, then yes, you know, you're going to fall for a lot of booby traps, you know, along that journey. You just simply cannot be money focused. Money is simply a byproduct of all the right actions, you know, that you've taken, you know, your principles, your values, the work that you put in, all of that. The money is a byproduct of all of that.
Absolutely. I genuinely couldn't agree more, because I think you're absolutely right. Shiny penny syndrome is tough. You know, I'm sure you've had to deal with a little bit of that in your life. I certainly have. I spent a whole 2 weeks of my life watching videos and researching how to sell stuff on Amazon. And after 2 weeks, I suddenly was like, I don't want to do that. Like that really doesn't excite me at all. But the reason that I thought about it was because it was, I thought it was a quick and easy way of making money. If you want to make real money, there's no quick and easy way. If you want to make a little bit of money to help yourself along the way, there are some quick and easy ways of doing it. And I think it's about understanding that life it's like a staircase. You know, you've got to get up the first step. Sometimes the first and second step might be the hardest steps to get up. And once you've got your rhythm, you start getting up those steps a lot quicker. But we were talking off air, weren't we, about sort of the idea of financial independence. And I genuinely believe that people should have sort of a short and long term plan. The short term should be to find something that can cover their own personal finances, their own personal outgoings on a month to month basis, because it then gives you that independence of money to think. I don't know if you ever watched, a lot of people watch the second series of this. I don't necessarily think that many people watched the first series of Undercover Billionaire, because the second series had Grant Cardone.
Grant Cardone, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm one of those. I only watched the Grant Cardone one.
Yeah, so watch the first one, right?
Okay.
So the first one was with Glenn Stern. I can't remember. He built a bank in America, and I think I took a lot from this show that most people wouldn't have taken. And he did what the three gals and guys, I should say, in the second series did, which is they're trying to build a $1 million valued company within 90 days, so 3 months. So Glenn was trying to do that in the first series. I won't spoil it as to whether he achieved it or not. But what he did in the first 2 weeks was like exciting for me to think about. He said very early doors, he's like, right, if I'm going to build this business, I need to be secure from a financial point of view. So he said, what I need to do is I need to have enough food, enough money to eat, and somewhere to sleep. I need those two things. So although I'm going to start thinking about what business I might build, you know, start making connections with people and all that kind of stuff, my primary focus for the first couple of weeks is to achieve both those things. So he set out and did small tasks. He had his truck. He drove down a railroad to find tires that had just been discarded, and he went and sold them. And when he had enough money, he bought a shit car, and he then went and flipped it and sold it and made like a grand profit on it or something like that. And he did that for the first 2 weeks to get to an amount of money that he knew would cover his food budget for the 3 months. And he then, well, I think within the first week he had the money to do for the accommodation, where he literally went to somebody and said, I want to live here for 3 months. Here's 3 months in advance. And that was it. So he knew he was secure. Cash flow was covered. So then he could just focus his attention on building that business. And that was like a mind-blowing
Wow.
thing for me. I was like, that is really clever. Like, I mean, it's so simple when you think about it. Of course you would do that, but so few people do it. And I think that, unfortunately, I think most business owners in the UK probably have that sole income. You know, that's that. If something goes wrong with that, they're in a heap of trouble. And you need to diversify, but you don't need that diversification to be something that is equal to your main income. You've got your baby. I've got Grand Union Finance. You know, it's doing really, really well. That's great. We're going to keep growing that. But to have then a couple of other little mini things on the side, you know, I do some speaking and various other things. You know, it's not mind-blowing income that I get from those types of things, but it's enough that over the course of a year, it probably pays for me to have a roof over my head and to eat. So that for me is great, because it gives me that really strong foundation to, if the company has a bad month, I don't suffer as long as you know my staff are covered. That's actually my main focus. Then I don't need to worry about myself because I know that I'm covered. And I think this is kind of like the sort of the basic money management skills that a lot of people, particularly going into the year that we're going into, cost of living crisis, all that kind of stuff. The amount of stuff I'm talking, the amount of times I'm talking to clients at the moment or talking to people online, and I'm just saying, you know, look, this year is the year to educate yourself about money. To actually understand, right, how can I give myself the best platform to survive this year? I did a talk recently at an event when I was talking about money management, and I got everyone to stand up at the beginning of the talk, and I said, right, if you can tell me to the nearest £500 how much you spent last month, just keep standing. And I went down till like £20, £10, £1. We got to £1. There was one person out of 250 people still standing. Even at £10, I think only about 4 or 5 people were still standing. And I said to them all, I said, this person here with the £1, her name was Sarah. I know her quite well. I said, you all need to be like Sarah. Because if you don't understand what's coming in and out of your bank account on a monthly basis, how the hell can you then move on to investing or building a business? You've got to get the fundamentals right. And that, for me, this year is a massive thing that a lot of people got to learn, how to manage their own money and how to set themselves up, set the foundations for survival and growth. And that's how you do it.
Well, mate, you just answered my next question, right? That was literally my next question. What would you do? Because, you know, what I want to do is, while I've got you here, is to really, you know, tap into your expertise. And, you know, that's obviously a key one that you just mentioned there. But if someone was starting out, obviously we're coming into the period that we're coming into, you know, but as you and I know, there's going to be incredible opportunities, you know, within the property space, you know, during this period, right? But if I'm new, I don't understand the landscape and I want to get into property now, you know, what would be your advice for someone that's just looking to come in?
So for me, there's a couple of things. Number one is to find the people to get the right advice from. So, I work with loads of different people that offer, you know, services similar to mine, but in a different, you know, it's contributory, like tax advisors, solicitors, accountants, agents, property managers, you know, all builders, all these types of people. It's take the time to go and get advice from the right people, and build up that team of advisors around you that can actually give you that good advice. That's a real fundamental, because too many people just watch YouTube videos and that's it. That's not a bad thing, and actually that's a really good way of finding those people. You know, as I said to you before, I'm actively trying to improve my ability to run a successful business, and I've spent the last year watching stuff on YouTube, listening to podcasts for people that are successful entrepreneurs, not necessarily in my space. And over that time, what I've done is I've sort of, I don't know if I like that person anymore, get rid of them. And you scale it down. And on YouTube, I literally just watch like 3 different people's videos now. And they are the people that I take that advice from, and I know that they're really good at what they do. And one of them actually, I've actually already approached to talk about mentorship and stuff like that. So that's the first thing I would do, is to actually find the right people that you want to take advice from, and don't make that a massive pool of people, because it then becomes a crowd and you're just going to get so much conflicting information. You just want to find some people that you feel like you trust and do that. The next thing to do is to prepare yourself from a financial standpoint. You, as I said before, you need to understand your own personal financial situation. You need to get financially literate. Just things like, it's amazing how many clients I speak to and I say to them, have you got any credit issues? and they go, oh yeah, I think I've got like a missed payment from like last year. Wicked, send me your credit file. I've got like 20 missed payments from within the last 2 years. I'm like, how do you not know this? You know, I know through a direct debit issue, because the money came out of the wrong account, because it's just me being stupid 2 years ago. I have a missed payment on one of my credit cards. I know that. That's the only missed payment I've got, and I know that I've got that. But only when you know can you sort the problem out. And yeah, so doing that, understanding your credit, understanding your personal financial situation, I would get yourself so financially secure. And I don't mean secure in terms of you've got enough money. I mean secure in terms of you know where all your money's going on a monthly basis, that nothing surprises you. You know, I have a bank account that I pay myself into, but that bank account is nothing but is just a landing page for money. What happens in the days afterwards is the money is then allocated to things. I've got a bills account, I've got an entertainment account, I've got a social account, I've got an investment account, I've got a paying for food account, I've got a paying for this account, that. I've got 20 odd accounts that everything then goes into, so that I know that everything is covered on a monthly basis and I never overspend and everything is covered. And people might say, well, that's overkill. It's not overkill, it's standard. That is what everyone should do. Because if you don't do that, then you're setting yourself up to fail. And I think this is the key. It's get the right people around you, and then give yourself the best financial foundation that you possibly can. Because as we know, look, in the world of property, if you've got bad foundations, the whole building's going to fall down.
Crumbling.
So think about it from your own perspective as well. Get yourself a solid foundation financially, and you then taking a phrase from a famous property entrepreneur. What gets measured gets managed. Once you've got the information, once you can see how much money's coming in and what you need to allocate for various different things, that's when you can then manipulate that to improve things. If you're looking at it and going, right, my bills are really high there actually, so what's the issue? Oh, well, actually my credit cards, I've got a couple of credit cards. Well, you can then look at the rest of the money, what's that getting allocated to? Well, actually, if I didn't spend as much money on that, then I could overpay on my credit card and I could pay that down. That's another thing. If you've got personal debt, I would try and find a way of getting rid of that. And I've got my own sort of methodology of how to do that, and as quickly as you possibly can. But I would do that, because you don't want to be starting to save money when you've got debt that's outstanding, probably on quite high interest. But yeah, once you've done that and you've been doing it for a couple of months, you will start to see patterns in, actually I could probably improve this and I could do this better. But yeah, solid foundations are the way to go.
Wow, incredible. Really good answer. Really, really good answer. What if I haven't got solid foundations now, but I'm ready to come into the market in terms of I've got access to finance and I want to really do property because I understand there's going to be opportunities in the marketplace now. What are my options?
I wouldn't rush in. I think there's a real balance to be had between being patient and waiting too long. So I think you need to get educated. You need to be very focused on what you're going to do. The amount of people I get on the phone. Oh, so what are the plans? What strategies are you looking to employ? Well, thinking about service accommodation, but then also maybe social housing. I really like the idea of commercial to residential conversions. Yeah, awesome, great. So which one of those do you actually want to do the most? Oh no, I want to do all of them. Well, you can't do all of them at the same time. Yeah, well, also I'm thinking about lease options. Yeah, great. Okay, so you've got to be focused. And I think that comes back down to what I was saying previously about finding the right people around you. When property strategies and financial products, which is obviously my expertise, both of those things are just tools to within your property business. And actually, I wouldn't even say property business. I'm a great believer that you have a business that will have multiple facets to it. I mentioned earlier James Sinclair, guy who wrote The Experience Business. He's got a philosophy. He actually came on my podcast once and absolutely schooled me in the philosophy of running a business, where he says you've got your business as it is now. So you basically got under your business, you've got the business you've got now, the business where you want it to be. You've got a marketing and media business, because we all know you've got to be able to market your business to get more customers and clients. And then you've got a property business or an assets/investment business. So everything all intertwines. And on the property side of things, you've got your long-term business objectives, and then that's why it's important to understand those, because then if your long-term property business objectives is I want it to be as passive as I possibly can. I don't really want to be doing much. I don't like the idea of being on site. I can't be asked with all this, direct to vendor, below market value stuff. That's absolutely fine, because what that means is really your focus should probably be on building a business around something that you love doing in a market that you think you can add value to, which will create lumpy funds to then just be able to buy to let and commercial property with. You don't need to do anything with them. They're just there building your asset base, generating your cash flow. And so that's why it's so important to think about these things, because then straight away you've got your strategy. You're not thinking about service accommodation then, because service accommodation doesn't fit in with that philosophy, with that long-term goal. If you turn around and go, I love hospitality. I've worked in hotels all my life. So I want to build this business that's worth this, that, and the other, and I want to be generating cash flow of this, that, and the other. And I think the mechanism to help me get there is the strategy of service accommodation. Amazing. I haven't got any money right now. Great. Do rent to service accommodation. Learn the process. Because what that does is, I'm a broker that loves rent to rent. Because I think that it teaches you can't use that experience from a mortgage perspective, but if you do it right, what you're doing is you're effectively building a property management company. Whether it's if you're doing rent to HMO, which a lot of people do, then you're a property management company. If you're doing rent to SA, you're a hospitality business. And you learn the fundamentals of that. So when the cash flow gets to a point where you've got enough money, that's your business. That's the business that I said that's happening over here, that's doing the lumpy cash flow. Then that's your business. Then suddenly you can go and start buying properties that then fit into and is run by the existing business that you've already got. This is why it's so important to understand what you actually want to do, because otherwise you're just going online and you're saying, oh, this person's doing HMO, that looks like fun. Oh, student lets look brilliant. What's the point? Why are you doing it? And too many people get distracted with the short term, that looks like a good idea. But what I say is, but where does that fit into your strategy? Where does that actually fit into your long-term goal? And if it doesn't, just ignore it. Just literally just remove it from your brain. Just focus in on the stuff that's actually going to help you achieve the target that you want to get to. Wow.
That's a great answer, man. To be honest, I kind of went into that. I was saying, you know what, I want Sam to give these people a tip, but I prefer that answer, that answer, because it's so true. It is so true. And everything we're being is with the strategy, really understanding what do I actually want, because there's a lot of different strategies in property, and they all actually work. With the right education, with the right diligence, with the right effort, you can get results from all of them. But if they don't match your ambitions and what you truly want to achieve, what then happens is people yo-yo. You go into it like, no, this is crap, it's too much hard work, I don't want to do that, because you're not aligned. It's not aligned with your vision.
Totally.
Once it becomes aligned with your vision and what you truly want to achieve, bang, the effort seems effortless then. Yeah, right? Exactly. I'm so glad you actually answered it, in that way, mate. That was awesome.
It's like you told me what to say.
Awesome, man. Look, honestly, there's so many more questions I'd love to ask, but time is time. I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate that. But we've got a tradition on the podcast, so just to round it off, you've gone on to achieve all of these things now. What remains? What is now your need to succeed?
I genuinely get a buzz out of running my team, helping my clients and all that kind of stuff. And I think what I've learned in building Grand Union Finance is that it's the running of the business, not necessarily the service that we provide, that is the thing that drives me. And what drives me now is I want to build that larger business that we were talking about, the multi-company business, the investment business, the media side of the business. So that's what drives me now. That's what the success for me is, a multitude of companies working in tandem together to give an incredible service to as many different people as I possibly can, with the backing of a top quality property business working in the background, which is ultimately my goal. I've got a very clear vision as to what I want to do over the next 10 years, and I would imagine that once I get there, it's going to be worth several million, which is, as I said, that is kind of by the wayside. I love the idea of being able to look over it in a few years' time and go, not only am I helping loads of people, but I'm employing loads of people into companies that give them the best place to work. And so that's what inspires me, and that's what drives me to that's success in my book over the next few years.
Incredible. The property investors broker, Mr.
Apparently.
Sam Norris.
Apparently.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.